Welcome to Page One, the award-winning show for writers with the reader in mind.
That draws the reader along, just like fiction.
Here's your host and producer, Zita Christian.
Hi everyone, welcome to Page One. I'm Zita Christian. I am delighted tonight to introduce you to a longtime friend and a fellow author. She has come from New York to talk with us about a new book, a new series, and a very, very interesting background and how all of this came about. Please welcome Tracey Lyons, who is writing as Tracey Sorel. Tracey, thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me, Zita.
This is so much fun. And of course, the crew was all excited when they saw what we were setting up for the set. We have the wine bottle, the glasses. Looks like there's a picnic going on over here. And you have a new book out. And I want to talk about all of that tonight. So tell me the title of the book and the title of the series.
The book is called Zinfandelity, and the title of the series is The Wine Country Vixens.
Okay, now I just want to be sure everybody heard that title of the book, Zinfandelity.
Yeah, a mouthful, I know,
So
but yes.
cool. I really like that idea. Where did you get the idea for, and I realize that's such a cliche question, but I really think it's important for this. Where did you come up with an idea for the Wine Vixens, Wine Country Vixens,
Correct,
as the series,
right,
and Zinfandelity as a title? Where'd that come from?
Well, I lived in California for about 3 years, and part of the whole thing of living in Northern California is you have to drink a lot of wine. And I had the privilege of living in Livermore, which was 35 wineries right outside my back door.
Nice.
Yes, and they, a couple times a year they do wine festivals.
Yeah.
And while we were waiting online for the bus to come drive us around at one of the wine festivals, we were a little bored, and so I said, well, let's start coming up with some new names for wines.
Wait, who's the we?
Oh, there was a group of friends.
Oh,
Group
okay.
of friends, big group of friends, yes. You always travel in packs. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we started out with Zinfandelity, Merlot Mayhem, Chardonnay Chaos, Pinot Gigolo, Bordeaux Baby, Rosé Romance. Those were the ones we came up with.
Those are really nice. This is very, very clever. Now, when a lot of writing questions I have for you tonight, because we've known each other a long time. Yeah. So when you started out, when you started this book, did you say to yourself initially, I'm going to write a series because you came up with all of these really cool titles? Or was it a matter of you did one book and then thought, oh, well, maybe this could be expanded to a series?
It was always going to be, I think in the back of my mind, it was always going to be a series. I knew it was going to revolve around a group of women friends who got together occasionally and have their little wine tastings and just kind of discuss their life's woes. And so, from the get-go, Zinfandelity was going to be the first because I was introducing all of the characters that were going to be in the future books in the series were all going to be in Zinfandelity.
Okay.
And I always knew it was going to be divorce-related. Yeah.
Okay, well, so this brings me to a question that I think a lot of readers have when they're reading a series. Do you have to read the books in order? Are they standalone, or do you need to read book number 1, then book 2 and 3?
This particular series is standalone. You don't really need to read them in any order.
Okay.
So, yeah, for this
Oh, that's
one,
good.
yeah.
That's good. Now, you mentioned a minute ago that you did live in wine country. So other than that day, that infamous
fateful day, yes.
that fateful day that you took the wine tour and were thinking about the names. Anything else about just the fact of living in wine country that wound up informing your books? And I say that because I think the power of place is so important, and I think a good author really draws on the power of place.
Right. And I agree. And I think especially when you are working in series romance or contemporary or mystery or wherever, I think you really do have to have a good sense of setting, especially if the setting is what pushes that series forward. And in the case of the Wine Country Vixens, the setting is the series. So it's part of, I guess you call it a noun, right?
Yeah, it's excellent. This is, the show is Page One. And so whenever I have an author on the show, I like the author to read page 1 of the book. In your case, I want you to go to the top of page 2. I already scoped that out so we can get a feel not only for the story and the writing, but I think particularly for you, because we've known each other so long. I know that whatever it is you write, there's even serious things. There's a touch and sometimes more of humor. So if you would read page 1 and that little top of page 2.
Let me find page 1. We'll be all set. Okay. Her husband was a cheating bastard. The hot pink lipstick stain on his shirt collar definitely didn't match her shade, and the last piece of the puzzle, which had been plaguing her for days, finally slipped into place. The reality slapped Beth Chadwick in the face with all the ferocity of a cold San Francisco Bay wind. Still, finding her suspicion hard to comprehend even after almost 2 days, Beth forced herself to go over this revelation again. She'd been innocently going about her weekly chores. Monday meant a trip to the cleaners to drop off Dirk's white business shirts. One in particular needed extra stain removal treatment. Something that had seemed so mundane at the time suddenly became evidence of his infidelity. Her stomach twisted into a big ball of fire, forcing her to battle the urge to gag on the acid reflux. If not for the misdirected mail delivered to their house instead of his office, she might never have been the wiser. The lipstick stain on his shirt would have come and gone with a whisk of bleach. Now that very shirt lay crumpled in a ball on top of the washing machine, more evidence in her ever-growing case against the man she once called her husband. Like an old black and white movie, the events of that day played over and over in her mind. She'd driven to the other side of Highway 101 to drop off the mail at her husband's real estate office. Parking next to the cherry red Corvette convertible, the one her husband had given himself for his 35th birthday last year. She should have known he'd turn into a low-down, lousy cheat. The only reason a man who had been married for a decade purchased a soft-top convertible was to impress a woman, one who wasn't his wife.
Oh, Tracey. Yeah. So even this, this is a story about a woman whose husband is unfaithful.
Right.
And you still manage to have those little touches of humor in there. But the first thing that occurred to me when I was reading that was that you have tackled a big theme. I mean, adultery is a big theme. And just a minute ago, if I heard you correctly, did you say that all the women friends in the group, that a divorce is part of a unifying theme or something about that?
No, for this particular book, the main character, Beth Chadwick, so we're following her story. The other women all have their own little things going on.
Other things.
Yes.
Okay. So what made you choose adultery? And did you sit down and think, how am I going to deal with this theme? I mean, you could have dealt with that in many ways.
Right.
So tell me about the thought process.
Well, first of all, I've been happily married for 33 years to my high school sweetheart. So I've not experienced divorce firsthand, but I've had members of the family divorce and friends divorce. So I kind of drew on that, but I wanted to be really careful not to get into not to make the book seem nitty gritty, deep, emotional, but yet I had to weave in enough of that, so the reader wants to go on Beth's journey.
Yeah.
And wants to see her come out on the other side of that. So you do get a bit of her angst, as she learns about what her husband did.
Okay. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to ask you to switch gears here for a minute and talk about, just give me a brief overview of the books that you wrote before this, the ones you wrote as Tracey Lyons.
Yeah, like the other side of the moon.
It's different. It's very different. But I think that's important for the writers in the audience because we write a lot of different things.
Right.
So tell me about the previous books.
The previous books were historical romance, and they were considered sweet historical, which means it's only kissing and hugging. There's no actual love scenes in the books. So it was really a big shift to come to contemporary and also have it hotter, spicier, sexier.
So this has some sizzle.
Yes.
Okay, I like the way you said that.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And so those were the historicals, the sweet historicals.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
In this one, now those you wrote as Tracey Lyons.
Correct.
This one you're writing as Tracey Sorel. Why the pseudonym?
When you're writing sweet romance, you build this audience, and they want you to be faithful to them
Yes.
Okay. And when I decided to go with the contemporary, spicier books, I knew that it was going to be really difficult to have crossover readership. I mean, I think you can get crossover readership, but really when you have that base, they want to stay strictly with the sweet romance. And in the new readership, I was going for a totally different group of readers, and I really felt that debuting the Tracey Sorel name was probably business-wise the right way to go for the series.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think also because the original books were historical and the new one is contemporary.
Right.
That's a big difference too.
Yes.
And
yes, and it's hard sometimes to, still working in both fields, both genres. It's really hard sometimes to be pure historical and then switch over and do the contemporaries, kind of to give yourself a few days in between.
That's a good point. And your voice changes too when you do. Could you talk a little bit about how you find, how you develop? Maybe the question is more, which one comes naturally? Is it the contemporary voice or the historical voice?
That's a really good question, Zita. And I'm going to tell you, my historical voice comes naturally. And I was shocked to find that out. And it probably was why this book went through, a huge revision process. And I think because it took me a little bit longer to find the contemporary voice. I mean, at the core of my books, you're still going to see me. The writer in me is still the core of both of the books, but I'm more historical. I love that whole, the whole romance of the 1800s, and
That's my period too.
Yeah, I know,
that time period.
Right?
Yeah, that's very interesting. Now, the original books, the other series, that was published by Avalon.
Correct.
And they are known for publishing hardcover. They sell to libraries.
Yes.
And these are the sweeter books.
Yes, the Women of Surprise. That's
Women
series.
of Surprise.
Yes.
That series.
Yep.
Okay. Now, in this one, for this book, you chose to self-publish.
I did.
And of course, the world now in 2013 for self-publishing it's a world apart.
It's an explosion.
It's very, very different.
Yeah.
So there are so many other options, things that just were not available to writers before.
Yes.
So talk to me about the decision to self-publish and some of the factors, the pros and cons, when you compare traditional publishing with self-publishing.
Well, first of all, it's like jumping off a cliff without a net, because in traditional publishing, everybody is doing everything for you. You write the book, you sell it to the publisher, they assign you an editor, they assign you a copy editor, they do the cover art, you just do the final edits and send everything back and have this product. And it was a huge move, a huge risk to do this. Mm-hmm. But I really felt that if I was going to do with anything, that self-publishing or independently publishing, this would have been the series to go with, that step forward with. And it's kind of scary, because I'm responsible for everything. I'm responsible for cover art. I'm responsible for the sales. I'm responsible for getting the promo, for the marketing, right? And it's the balance is. I'm still working on the balancing of all of that and continuing writing. The writing process.
So why would you do it in the first place? Because I've heard authors, you and I were having this discussion at the Novelist Inc. conference last year, and the opportunities available to writers now to self-publish, they're huge advantages.
Huge. Well, talking numbers-wise, you're making 50 times more than what you're going to make traditional. I mean, you're speaking royalty levels are much higher self-publishing than they are. But having said that, the risk level is also higher. So, I mean, it's a balance. It really is.
Yeah. You mentioned a minute ago about covers. And I have to tell you, Tracey, I've seen a lot of self-published books more and more lately. And the covers are key. They are absolutely key to catching the attention of a reader, whether they're in an actual paper version, a print version, or if they're online.
Correct.
And the cover that you have for this book is gorgeous.
Thank you.
How did that come about?
Wow. I have a cover artist, Ray Monet, and she and I have worked on this for a couple of years. We knew we wanted the wine theme because that's really key, I think, to the marketing of the book. But we also wanted that women's fiction feel, so we went with the shoes and the wine bottle and the wine glass. She actually surprised me with the cover. We had discussed initially just the shoes in the wine glass, and the bottle. And then she came up with this fantastic idea, and I was like, okay, let's just go with it. So every book in the series will basically have this cover, and what's going to be interchangeable with that will be the color of the grapes, the shape of the shoe. So it's going to match each series. So Pinot Gigolo, which is next up, will have the white grapes, as you know, because it'll be white wine. And so we just decided to, you know, branding wise, we decided to keep everything similar, but not so similar, you know.
So to be identifiable, but different.
Right.
Did I hear you correctly that you said you'd been working on this with Ray, your cover artist? What was her name again?
Ray Monet.
Ray Monet. So you were working on this for a couple of years? Yeah. Do you say years?
I said years.
Okay, I thought for a minute. I know I didn't hear that.
No,
correctly.
Years.
It does take a long time.
It does. It does. And you know, when we talk to traditional to self, the timeline's not much different publication-wise. I mean, you know, when you traditionally publish, you look at an average from a year to 18 months from contract signing to the end. It's the same thing with this, because if you're going to rush it, it's going to look rushed. And Ray and I made the decision, well, me as the author made the decision, that I wanted this to be a quality product. You know, it's got my name on it, and I want it to be quality. And I think that we did a really good job with it.
You sure
I'm really proud of it.
Very, very pretty. One thing I noticed too, because a lot of workshops talking about if you're going to self-publish, do the independent route, that the cover has to say something about the story. And interesting on there, that you have a pair of shoes that obviously belong to a woman, and you have a single glass. Right. Not two glasses, there's something evocative about this in terms of I look at that and go, this is a woman's story.
Right.
But it is a romance.
Yes, it is.
So when I think of that, I think there is an ending that is certainly hopeful. Okay, so it's not a matter of will it end on a hopeful note, it's how it gets there.
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
I like that. Okay. So I think more than ever, whether an author is independently published or traditionally published, this whole thing of self-promotion is key. I mean, more so than ever.
Yeah, competition's really tough.
It's huge.
Yeah.
But there are also other opportunities that exist now that
Correct.
didn't exist. I remember when my first book came out in 1993, the biggest question, do you remember back then, was what kind of bookmarks are you going to make?
Yeah.
That was it. Oh, what kind of bookmarks are you going to have? And are you going to do a postcard? And that's
still there, but you know, it's funny because I'm getting ready to go to a conference and I'm thinking, what am I going to do? Bookmarks? Everybody's doing they're still doing bookmarks, but wow, when you're looking at 1,000 writers versus 500, that's a lot of bookmarks.
Yes.
On the tables for people to look through. I'm actually doing wine glasses for mine. Yeah.
Wine glasses?
Yes, little plastic ones, not the glass ones, but yeah.
Oh, Tracy, very clever. Very, very clever.
A unique giveaway.
It is. And so other than, you mentioned you're going to a conference, you're doing a wine glass giveaway. Obviously, you're on page 1. Other than that, what are some, because I'm trying to help some of the writers, because I know I have a lot of writers who I hear from, and they watch the show to find out like what's real with other writers. Like what are some of the real challenges? Not the everything is wonderful and glorious, but some of the real stuff, the hard stuff. You have to get your name out there. You have to let people know that you have a new book, and without a kind of top of the list best-selling author budget, you have to get creative in what you do. So talk to me about some of the things you're doing, because I'm hoping that some of the other writers in the audience, you can get some ideas here, because you're very clever with it.
Well, I'm doing the basic things, which I think a lot of the independent authors doing. And I'll tell you, with everything, social networking and everything on the internet, you can actually get a big bang for your promotional book. And so I'm doing, featured author stuff and full page ads on internet digital publications, which is so much cheaper than the print publications, by the way. I'm also, because this is a wine-themed book, I'm hooking up with wineries and doing book signings.
Tell me more.
Yeah, I've just actually started that. I'm trying to pace it, because I actually want to go from the East Coast to the West Coast. Wow. Very ambitious, I know. But I really want to go out to where these books are
those
set.
wineries. Oh my gosh.
I know.
Do you need a friend to go with you?
Yeah, come on along. It'll
Okay.
be fun. It'll be fun. Yeah, PR has been the toughest part of this whole.
It is.
I mean, we're still doing it as traditional publishers, our authors are still expected to do PR. But now it's kind of like, I almost feel like the sky's the limit. Because I don't have to call somebody from a publishing house and say, oh, by the way, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. Can you make sure you've got 50 books there for me, or 50 books available, So that part of the control has been a lot of fun. A little overwhelming, but a lot of fun.
Now, your book is a physical book, a print book.
Yes.
Is it also available electronically?
It is. Anywhere you buy your electronic books, it's out there.
So a lot of writers I know will choose the electronic route, but they
Not
shy away from the print route. Why did you decide to do both?
I knew I wanted to hit the wineries, and this is the only way to do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know it's a big risk because it's a lot more money to put out for the print, but it's also print on demand. So I'm trying to maybe do not pre-orders per se, but
Yeah. So you have an idea.
Reservations.
Oh, I like that. Okay. Okay. Now you mentioned a minute ago about that you were going to be going to a conference. Is that the Romantic Times conference?
Is.
Have you been to one of those before?
I haven't been to one in 13 years.
When was the last one?
2000, when my first book came out.
Where was that one?
Oh my gosh.
I haven't been since Baton Rouge.
Texas. We were in Texas.
Their conferences are wild.
They are
A lot
wild.
of fun. And I can see where a book with the title of Zinfandelity, I mean, there's just, Tracy, there really is something. Sometimes the title alone will get people talking, and I think you'll get a buzz about that.
Well, thank you.
Let me ask you something. If you could hire anyone to do any aspect of this whole experience, what kind of help would you want?
I would love an assistant. I have to say that I think that was the biggest surprise to me is how quickly my day got sucked up with promotion and meeting those promotion deadlines, because there again, it's back on me. It's my promotion deadline, not the publisher's, I actually had to do an Excel spreadsheet. So I would love to have somebody that I could just say, could you please do X, Y, and Z and make sure it's done by this time? Just get back to me when it's finished, Because it's a time suck, but it's a necessary evil.
well, there's one of those very also basic questions I wanted to ask you too that kind of follows on that. And it's a question I get a lot of times from people who are trying to juggle the day job and writing.
Yeah.
Or in your case now, it's the writing and promotion, because you do all this promotion for the first book, but if the second book isn't ready, then the promotion kind of dissolves.
Well, Zita, that's the beauty of today's publishing versus yesterday's publishing, is nothing ever goes out of print.
That's true.
So I'm actually thinking do the big push in the beginning, and then maybe 2-3 months from now, I can do another push for the same book, and maybe a little bit of a push for the next book. So we're not so limited as, you've got to get it all done within 6 weeks because your book is off the shelf.
Yeah.
It's no longer off the shelf.
Yeah, it's a different world. So I also noticed that on your website, you have some fabulous things on your website. I mean, it's quite a resource. So I want you to tell me about, what is it called? Wine Wednesday. What is Wine Wednesday?
Wine Wednesday is actually on my Facebook author page.
Okay.
And every Wednesday I taste a different wine and talk about it. And I just post it up, and I'm actually getting a pretty good response to it. So that's been a lot of fun. And I do the whole thing where I say where the wine came from, what the wine label is, what you can expect to taste from the wine, and then I taste the wine, and then I put down how the tasting went for me. So that's been a lot of fun, and it's.
So are you giving that information like as a professional person who knows wine, or are you giving this as
a lush? You know, when I lived in California, I learned a lot about wine tasting. I mean, the whole process of wine tasting, not like just go in and slug it down and say, oh, that was good, that was bad.
Good. Give me another one.
And it's true. If you take the time and you look at the label and you look at what the taste is supposed to be, and you pour it and, you know, do the little swirl and the little sniff and the taste, you're going to get a better experience. I know that sounds really snobby, but it's true.
No, I think it's part of realizing that there, like with so many things in life, there's so much more that's right in front of you if you know what to look for.
And I used to go in and just buy any bottle off the shelf. That sounded really bad. But anyways, now I actually take my time and I do look at the labels and try to pair it with what I'm having, or, you know, what the mood of the moment is, I guess. But yeah, it was a good experience living out there and learning.
You have stuff on your website about pairings.
I do. I don't know if it's the pairings. I do have on how to host a blind wine tasting.
Yeah, so what is how to host a blind wine tasting?
Yes.
What is that?
Oh, it's a great way to get your friends together for a good evening and fun. And what you do is you have everybody bring, say you pick a theme. So Zinfandel would be the theme night, and everybody would bring a bottle of Zinfandel. And then you have the little velvet covers. You can get the kits, or you can make your own. I say brown paper bags, actually. You cover the label up, and then
it's a different theme.
Yeah, and then everybody has a little tasting, and then you, at the end of the evening, you total up all the scores, because there's a point for each, like the taste, the color,
But they don't know what they're drinking.
No, they don't know what they're drinking, and whose wine they're drinking. You know, who brought what bottle until the very end when you unveil it, and then some people give away prizes, and everybody brings like an appetizer to go with it. So it's just a fun way to get your friends together and have a good time. Try a new wine. It's a great way to try a new wine, actually.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very clever idea. So can you tell us, we only have just a little over a minute left, but I know book number 2, Pinot Gigolo.
Yes.
So can you tell us, just give a little hint about what that one's about?
Yes, it's about a lingerie shop owner, and the name of the lingerie shop is the Pinot Gigolo. And it's about a Greek godlike guy that she meets along the way, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to do. I can hardly wait to get into the book and into the story and get it out there for everybody to take a peek at.
Tracey, you mentioned earlier that you've been married for 30-some years.
I have.
What's the family reaction? You know, I mean, with the historical sweet books, you know, no question. But this book, these books, Wine Country Vixens.
Yeah, they're a little different. My sisters were really excited because I've got one that says, you never have enough sex in those books. So,
She's happy now.
Yes, she is. She is. You know, for the most part, I have to say that my family's like, yes, she writes. It's what I do. You know, it's to them, it's an everyday thing. It's who I am. So, but they're very supportive of the new series.
Good.
They really are.
I think that's great, and I'm so glad that you came on here on the show and shared all this with us, and particularly that you brought the lovely display. So we get it's the show and tell.
That's right.
You get a feel for that, and
show,
and
tell,
I will
and taste.
and take. That's right. Show, tell, and taste. I will envision you on your wine country tours here as the book and the story progresses. And again, thanks very much for being on the show.
Well, thank you.
I also want to say thank you to the Page One crew. And to all of you in the audience. I love to close this show with the words of the fantasy writer Ursula Le Guin, who said, "There have been civilizations that did not use the wheel, but there have been no civilizations that did not tell stories." So find your story and find a way to tell it, and do join us again next time. Thank you.
Food for the crew and guests is provided by Manchester Grill of Manchester, Connecticut, and Angelo's Restaurant of Glastonbury, Connecticut. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email Zita at zitatv.com or write to Zita Christian, Page 1 TV, P.O. Box 1515, Manchester, Connecticut 06045-1515. You can watch this and other episodes of Page 1 on youtube.com/Zita3x3.